بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلامه عليهم أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلامه عليهم أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلامه عليهم أجمعين. آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we left off on line 83, is that right? وَأَثْبِتًا لِلْأَوْلِيَا الْكَرَامَةِ وَمَنْ نَفَاهَا فَانْبِذَ الْكَلَامِ, right? And we talked about the definition of a wali and its derivation, linguistic derivation from tawalla, which is the form 5 of that word. So tawalla, yatawalla, to undertake or engage in something. And we talked about how it could be either, it's on the pattern fa'il, wali on the pattern fa'il, either meaning the fa'il or the maf'ul, the one that does it or the one that it is done to. And so the wali therefore is the one that yatawalla, he or she is the one engaging in something, i.e. the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the implementation of the sacred law inwardly and outwardly. Or it could be it could come from the maf'ul, meaning that he is the recipient of this act of tawallin, which is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yatawalla amrahu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is managing his affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is managing his affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yatawalla amrahu. And they say hatta la yakilhu ila nafsihi wa la ghayrihi tarfata aynin. To the extent that Allah will not leave such a person to their own self or to others for the blink of an eye. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave them to anyone in creation for even a moment. So obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is managing everyone's affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is running things around here and everywhere. But that first of all, such a person is conscious of that. Such a person has a profound awareness of the divine management of his affairs, and even the events that unfold, all the phenomenal reality around him, externally as well as internally. So what's happening inside of the person, Allah Ta'ala is the Lord of all of these realms. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is the creator of our emotions. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is the creator of our feelings and etc., etc. And He has given us the capacity to work on ourselves, okay, to rectify our internal states, to rid ourselves of vices and to inculcate virtues, and to even to the extent of being conscious of our thoughts, being conscious of our reactions, being conscious and trying to control the type of thoughts that we have. But He is the existentiator of it all. He is the creator of it all. It is all a divine fiat. هذا خلق الله. This is the creative act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But so that such a person is aware that Allah is managing everything, and that secondly, another aspect to understand that differs from people not at this level is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is managing it in a way of lutf, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is managing such a person's affairs, always providing for them a way out. That whether it's good times or bad times, He gives them a way out, which is a way out unto His good pleasure. So if it's good times, Allah Ta'ala gives them a way out through the door of shukr, such that he is conscious of Allah and is not veiled by the blessings and is not deluded by the blessings and does not become full of himself because of the blessings that Allah has given. And similarly, in bad times, Allah Ta'ala gives a way out, that through the door of sabr, through the door of patience and ultimately contentment rida, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His decree, such that the person has a good opinion of Allah during the trial. Okay, and the person thinks well of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the trial. And this is one of the most difficult acts of worship, which is why it has arguably the greatest reward. That one of our masters, Al-Murta'ish, he says, أفضل الأعمال رؤية فضل الله في السراء والضراء. أفضل الأعمال رؤية فضل الله في السراء والضراء. That the very best of spiritual works is to be conscious of and to perceive the grace of Allah during good times and bad times, during both good times and bad times. And so even in our difficult situations, to try to focus the heart on having a good opinion of Allah is a tremendous act of worship. So this is the linguistic derivation. Another possible derivation is the form 6 of the verb, which is tawala. Instead of tawalla, tawala. And tawala has to do with being consecutive. Something time after time, again and again. Continuity. And so Sahl ibn Abdullah al-Tustari, he says, Al-wali man tawalat af'aluhu bil-muwafaqa. Al-wali man tawalat af'aluhu bil-muwafaqa. That the saint is someone who, his actions internally and externally, tawala, they are consecutively, consistently, ala al-muwafaqa, based on correspondence. Based on correspondence or harmony. With what? With Allah's good pleasure. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's good pleasure. So day in and day out, night in and night out, they are constantly staying in that state of harmony with the divine pleasure, with the sacred law. And that even if they trip, they pick themselves up right away with tawbah. And so inshallah the muwafaqa isn't broken. Bismillah. So such people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors them, which is why a karama comes from the root of honoring. These are honorific miracles, honorific breaking of the norm. It is where a hukm adi, a law of nature, is defied. And it is an indication to such a person that, inshallah, they're doing something right. So one of the adab of these people, one of the etiquettes of these people is that if Allah blesses them, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them with an honorary miracle, that they do not get deluded by it. And they do not sort of keep it in their mind and focus on it and start feeling proud of themselves because of it. But rather, they give shukr and they keep on moving forward. They don't let it slow them down, but rather it speeds them up. And so, one of our masters said that al-wali man uyyida bil karama wa ghuyyiba anha, that the wali is someone that is aided by the honorific miracle, yet it is made absent from him. Ghuyyiba anha, he is not thinking about it. Okay, so this is from their adab that they do not they're not deluded by the gifts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them. This is something in all of our creedal texts, affirming the karamaat of the awliya. And that's why Imam Laqani here says, وَأَثْبِتًا, affirm the karama for the awliya, وَمَنْ نَفَاهَ فَانْبِذًا كَلَامًا, whoever denies it, reject his statement. There are proofs in the Quran. So, Sayyidah Maryam alayhi salam, that the dominant opinion is that she was not a prophet. So therefore, and the Quran itself calls her Siddiqa. She was a person who was, alayhi salam, a master of sidq, of genuine sincerity to Allah, and being true and honest with the divine, and confirming everything the divine reveals. So, which is the highest level of walaya, is the Siddiqeen. Sayyidina Abu Bakr was the Siddiq of this ummah, or the head of the Siddiqeen, and then in the previous ummah there were others. And so our mother Maryam alayhi salam, she, spiritual mother, she is a Siddiqa. So when Zakaria alayhi salam would enter into her quarters, he would find rizq. And the Mufassirin say that the summer fruits would be during the winter, and the winter fruits would be during the summer. And so even he was bewildered by this, and he said, where is this from? And she says, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's a karama, it's a defying the law of nature. a defiance of the law of nature as an honor to a saint. The Asaf with the Sad, Hamza Sad, was the one that brought the Arsh of Bilqis, brought the Arsh of the Queen Bilqis from a distance, they say, of over a 2-month journey distance. That he brought it, Asaf brought it within the blink of an eye, quicker than the blink of an eye. In the Quran, this is mentioned in the Quran, the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam. So again, he was a wali. He was not a prophet, but he was a saint, and he was able to defy the law of nature by bringing a throne in such speed. Bismillah. And they say he knew the Ism al-Azam. He knew the Allah's greatest name, but with which if someone calls Allah with, He will certainly answer, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Quran itself has examples of karamaat. There's many ahadith for the Sahaba. So if the Sahaba, Allah be pleased with them all, if they're in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it's considered a mu'jiza. It's considered the Prophet's miracle, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if they're not in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's considered a karama. However, a caveat is that they mention that every karama of every wali is ultimately a mu'jiza of the Prophet he follows. Okay, so every karama, because what's the basis of their reaching a level such that Allah honors them in this way is ittiba' al-Rasul, is their wholehearted, meticulous following of their Prophet, of whichever ummah they're in. So, that ultimately every karama is a mu'jiza. Ultimately every karama is a mu'jiza of the Prophet that they are following, because it's through the ittiba' that they receive it. So there's no type of confusion as to the two. They're clearly and another key difference in the definitions is that a miracle of a prophet that happens in the presence of a prophet is with the tahaddi. It's with the challenge to reproduce it. And it's based off of a claim to prophecy. These are two aspects of a mu'jiza that it differs with the karama. The mu'jiza, the prophetic miracle, is based. It's with the challenge to reproduce it, based off of a claim to prophecy. Okay, whereas no wali would claim prophecy, and they don't make a challenge to reproduce it. It's something Allah gifts them, and were they to make a claim to prophecy, not only would they lose their walaya, but they would become kafir. Okay, so there's no confusion between a mu'jiza and a karama. But many Sahaba had karamat when they were on their own, not in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. So Sayyidina Umar radhiallahu ta'ala anhu, that when he was Khalifa, the Nile stopped running, and so he wrote a letter addressing the Nile, and he had it sent, and they threw the letter into the Nile, okay, and where he said, the letter said, "Min Abdullah Umar, Amir al-Mu'mineen ila Nil Misr." This letter is from the servant of God, Umar, the leader, Amir of the believers, to the Nile of Egypt. Amma ba'd, to proceed. فَإِن كُنْتِ تَجْرِي مِنْ قِبَلِكَ فَلَا تَجْرِي. If you flow from your own accord, then don't flow. وَإِن كَانَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى يُجْرِيكِ فَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ الْوَاحِدَ الْقَهَّارَ أَنْ يُجْرِيَكَ. But if it's Allah alone who causes you to flow, then I ask Allah, the one, the over-dominating, Al-Wahid Al-Qahar, to cause you to flow. That's the letter. فَجَرَى مِنْ وَقْتِهِ إِلَى يَوْمِنَا. And so at that moment, as soon as that letter was cast into it, it started flowing again till this day. And this is narrated, it has, Abu Shaykh narrates it and others. So that's karama. And Sayyidina Umar, he had when he was Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Sariya, his general, who was, they say, a distance of 500 farsakh. A farsakh, I think, is about 3 miles. So 1,500 miles away in Nahawand. Nahawand, that Sariya, the general, was leader of the Muslims, was fighting in the battle, and the enemy was coming behind the mountain. Sayyidina Umar is all the way in Medina, 1,500 miles away, and he's giving khutbah. Suddenly he calls out in the middle of the khutbah, Ya Sariyat al-Jabal al-Jabala. Ya Sariyat al-Jabal al-Jabala. He says, Oh Sariya, the mountain, the mountain. And Sariya heard it and turns around and was able to meet the enemy head on. And later when they asked both Sariya and Sayyidina Umar, they said that we were able to hear each other, that he was able to hear Sayyidina Umar calling out. And this was witnessed by everyone in the congregation. There's a narration that Khalid ibn Walid drank poison and he did not get harmed by it. That one of the Christians representing Christians of a particular area came, and he had a little glass qarura bottle with some poison in it, and Sayyidina Khalid asked, what is that? He said, it's it's poison, and Sayyidina Khalid just took it from his hand and drank it and gave it back to him, and he was perfectly fine. And the man went back and he said, let's not fight them, and they made a peace treaty. Many examples of the early Safina, the Mawla of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was on this Sahih Hadith, he was on a ship, he was on a Safina, and he gets shipwrecked, and he gets lost in a akama, in a forest, and suddenly he sees a lion, and the lion is growling at him, and he says, Ya Abul Harith, way of calling out to a lion. He says, Inni Mawla Rasulillah, verily I am the freed servant of the Messenger of God. And the lion, Safina says that the lion got calm and came up to him and nudged him with his shoulder. And he nudged him in a particular direction until he fell upon the road again. He came upon the road to find his way again, and he turned around, and the lion, فَهَمْهَمَ كَأَنَّهُ يُوَدِّعَنِي. He said that the lion started saying, as if he was saying farewell to me. There's sahih narration. So, and if we look at just the kharq, just the defying of the law of nature that's been narrated, it's a type of tawatur. That there's so many narrations of these happening, not only in the early generations, but later as well, that it's undeniable, it's incontestable. So now it's interesting because Imam Nasafi, whose Nasafiyya, his creed, is arguably the most, it was the most widespread, until this day, the most widespread creed that was taught in the seminaries of Sunni Islam. Okay, the creed of Imam Nasafi, the Nasafiyya, is arguably the creed that, from the time it was authored until today, is the most ubiquitously taught creed in our colleges and seminaries, okay, in Sunni Islam. And the matan, usually a matan focuses just on the main issue, and the commentary goes into examples. So you would think that on this issue, Imam Nasafi would just say, how he starts the section, وَكَرَامَةَ الْأَوْلِيَاءِ حَقٍّ, that would be sufficient for a matan. The saintly miracles of the people close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, haqqun, is a reality. A creedal point, that's sufficient. And then, for example, Imam Taftazani or any of the other commentators could give the examples and whatnot. And the matan is what the kids would memorize. The students would memorize the actual matan, and the commentaries there to explain. But the matan itself, what does Imam Nasafi say? He doesn't just stop there. He says, وَكَرَامَةُ الْأَوْلِيَاءِ حَقٍّ, and then he says, فَتَظْهَرُ الْكَرَامَةِ عَلَى تَرِيقِ نَقْدِ الْعَادَةِ لِلْوَلِي. So the karama will appear as a way of defying a law of nature for the wali. For example, قَطْعِ الْمَسَافَ الْبَعِيدَ فِي الْمُدَّةِ الْقَلِيلَةِ, traversing far distances in a short amount of time. وَظُهُورِ الطَّعَامِ وَالشَّرَابِ وَاللِّبَاسِ عِنْدَ الْحَاجَةِ, or the miraculous appearance of food, drink, or clothing when there's a need. وَالْمَشِي عَلَى الْمَاءِ, or walking on water. وَالطَّيَرَانِ فِي الْهَوَاءِ, or flying in the air. وَكَلَامِ الْجَمَادِ وَالْأَجْمَاءِ, or the speaking of inanimate objects or animals. وَانْدِفَاءِ الْمُتَوَجِّهِ مِنَ الْبَلَاءِ, or someone being a trial, a tribulation being warded off, calamity being warded off. وَكَفَايَةِ الْمُهِمَّ عَنِ الْأَعْدَاءِ, or someone that the enemy is about to take overpowered, that they are sufficed. وَغَيْرِ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْأَشْيَاء, etc. So this is what children are memorizing in our seminaries. They actually memorize these examples as well. And it shows that this is something that the ulama wanted us to really take to heart, that these are not just stories, this is not something just, tales of the ancients. No, these are realities, and these examples there's many narrations. And to this day people have Karamaat. Now, ultimately, they will say that, the greatest karama is istikhara. They say that the greatest karama is just to be in a state of devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consistently. What we said, that idea of tawali. And because they say that even a bug could fly in the air or walk on water. That if Allah opens for you ever to walk on water, don't think you're special. Okay, because there's bugs that do that too. So how does one know they're special? That they have istiqamah. They're consistently implementing the sharia internally and externally. And if they're really doing that, then they won't think they're special. So, because part of implementing the sharia internally is to not have ujub, is to not be impressed with yourself. And it relates to our aqidah, that why would a person not be impressed with themselves if they're doing so well in their devotion? Because in our aqidah we believe, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Because Allah creates you and what you do. So if you find yourself doing great things, don't take credit. Allah is doing it. Allah is creating it. It comes from Allah directly, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. What's your question?
Yeah, I was wondering, what's the exact difference between a mu'jiza and a karama? So it's like a karama just specifically from a non-prophet?
Yeah, so the difference between mu'jiza and karama is that a karama is from a saint, i.e. someone who is genuinely following a prophet, outwardly and inwardly, who is in a state of obedience and avoiding disobedience. We talked about the longer definition in last class, and that there is no claim to prophecy and there's no challenge of reproducing it. Whereas with a prophetic miracle, it's from a prophet who, i.e. claims to be a prophet, and so the miracle is an indication that they're a true prophet, and it comes with the challenge to reproduce it, which no one can. This is the difference. Okay, alhamdulillah. So that with that line, we actually end the nubuwat, the second major section of aqidah. So we've done now, mashallah, the ilahiyat, the metaphysics or the realities of the divine, and then the nubuwat, the second section, which are the realities of prophets, alayhimus salam. So now we embark on the sam'iyat, and the sam'iyat, which is sometimes translated as eschatology, deals with what. So the ilahiyat is primarily natural theology, that what is proven by reason alone, okay, beliefs that are proven by reason alone, and we used, they use logical proofs, syllogisms, etc. The nubuwat are realities that we affirm about the prophets alayhimus salam that are based on, the premises are based on revelation, but the conclusions are proven logically. So it's a mix of natural theology and revealed theology. The sam'iyat is primarily revealed theology. It's just what we affirm that has come from revelation, that had it not been for revelation, the mind could not arrive at on its own. Okay, had it not been for revelation, the mind could not arrive at the sam'iyat, the sirat over the hellfire, the wazn, the scales, etc., etc. So, and the main principle with the sam'iyat is that we affirm them literally. We affirm these realities literally, and the only time the literal is not affirmed is if there is a logical absurdity or contradiction entailed in it, in which case there is a figurative interpretation that's given. Okay, let's do the Q&A at the end, inshallah. So if you have a question, just make a note of it in your notes, and so we can make progress, inshallah. طيب وعندنا أن الدعاء ينفع كما من القرآن وعدا يسمع. So dua, the first thing that he starts with is dua. And he says, according to us, dua benefits. According to us, Ahl Sunnah, dua benefits. كما من القرآن وعدا يسمع, as heard يسمع, right? As is, as is heard from the Quran, i.e. taken from Revelation, wa'dan, as a promise. Ud'uni astajib lakum, that's a promise from Allah. Call on me and I shall answer you. Ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an, that I answer the call of the supplicant when he supplicates. A promise from Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to make dua. The Prophet ﷺ said, ad-du'a mukhul ibadah, it is the very marrow of worship, the core of worship. In another riwayah, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua itself is worship. It is worship itself. So this is something we're commanded to do. So the debate then was, why did he put this there? وَعِنْدَنَا أَنَّ الدُّعَى يَنْفَعُ. According to us, Ahl Sunnah, dua benefits. Well, because some of them, like the Mu'tazilis for example, they said that dua doesn't benefit because it's already decreed. Okay, everything is already decreed. So asking for something does not lead to a change in the decree. So the way Ahl Sunnah explained this is that, obviously the decree, the divine decree, which we said was, it's related to Allah's pre-eternal knowledge and will. Okay, the divine decree, which is related to Allah's pre-eternal knowledge and will. So the ta'alluq of His ilm, which is tanjizi qadim, and so effected or actual and pre-eternal, and the ta'alluq of His irada, which is tanjizi qadim as well. What He actually willed in pre-eternity, what He actually decided in pre-eternity. Okay, and that's one of the two ta'alluqs of irada. We did that in detail. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before He created us, before He created anything in the realm of eternity, which He is in, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knew or knows. This is the problem with language, is you get stuck with time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, time is only from our vista. Allah is outside of time, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah ta'ala knew and willed everything that He would do. Allah knew and willed everything that He would do. So if it occurs in the world, Allah willed it. If it occurs in the world, Allah willed it. Ma sha'allahu kan, wa ma lam yasha' lam yakun. Whatever Allah wills occurs, and what He does not will does not occur. So obviously that is unchanging because it's timeless. Okay, it's tanjizi qadim. The ta'alluq is actual and qadim, pre-eternal or eternal, outside of time. So it's not occurrent. It does not occur. It does not take place in time. But like any sabab, like any means, so for example, if Allah decrees that my thirst right now will be quenched in the next few moments, it's going to happen. But from my perspective, what do? I take the sabab, bismillah, alhamdulillah, and then Allah creates it. So does that change my taking the means? So from my perspective, the means still benefited me, in the sense that Allah's hikmah ordains that the path that I take to quench my thirst is to drink the water. But the qudra, the effect that was created subsequent to the drinking, was whose fiat? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah created the quenching. So dua is similar, that dua is a spiritual means. So for example, someone is ill and they make dua to Allah that He cure them. And then after a week they get cured. Their getting cured was written and created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But so was the dua. And Allah's hikmah has ordained that the means by which the means that the person takes that results or that precedes what Allah creates of the cure is dua. So it's no different from asbab in general. It's a spiritual sabab, it's a spiritual means, and Allah has revealed that this is what pleases Him. And if we go back to the hadith, the ultimate benefit is ibadah. Ad-du'a mukhul ibadah. And another riwayah, ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. So ultimately it is a form of worship. But Allah has decreed that it is a spiritual means that precedes benefit that Allah creates. So it is a spiritual sabab of benefit, and the benefit can be in different ways. Like the hadith says that, you know, ما من داع إلا هو بين إحدى ثلاث إما أن تعجل له طلبته أو يدخر له ثوابها أو يصرف عنه من السوء مثلها أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم, that there is no supplicant except that he is between one of three things, that either what he asked for is granted to him in this life, or the thawab of it is stored for him in the next life, or an equivalent amount of harm is warded off from him because of that dua. So it is a spiritual means for these benefits. And then also they mentioned that there's two types of qada. Okay, there's what's called the qada mubram and the qada mu'allaq. The qada mubram is the ultimate qada, the executed absolute qada. That is unchanging. That's the qada that we refer to as the ta'alluq of Allah's pre-eternal knowledge and will. The qada mu'allaq is a conditional or relative qada, which is a lesser qada or another qada that is what, for example, is revealed to the angels. Okay, and what's revealed to the angels. So the angels, for example, will see on what's in lesser tablets that are given to them, that if so-and-so who is ill, if he makes dua, then Allah will create the cure in such amount of time. But if he does not make dua, Allah will not create the cure in that time. Okay, so that's qada mu'allaq. There's a ta'liq that if he does this, then this. If he does this, then this. But the qada mubram, the ultimate qada, is he will do this and Allah will give the cure, for example. And that's unchanging. So the mu'allaq is changing. What the angels see, dua comes and then a particular result transpires, as opposed to another outcome that could have happened, that would have happened had he not taken the means, like any means. If he drinks the water, he will be quenched. If he doesn't, he won't be quenched. And that's mu'allaq. So, but it doesn't change the fact that the qada mubram is unchanging. So the greater lawh al-mahfuz, the greater preserved tablet, is what's inscribed in it, according to some of the theologians, is the qada mubram, the ultimate absolute qada, which is unchanging. But the lesser tablets that are given to angels, for example, have the qada mu'allaq, which changes. And so this is the way. There's many ahadith that are interpreted in this light. So for example, in Sahih hadith, man ahabba an yubsata lahu fi rizqihi aw yunsa'a lahu fi atharihi falyasil rahima. That whoever would like that they have increase in their provision and extension of their lifespan, then let him maintain kinship bonds. Okay, whoever would like that their provision is expanded and their lifespan is extended, then let him maintain kinship bonds. So again, it's a spiritual means. His lifespan and his rizq were already written in the hadith that you've done in the arba'in, in the womb. The angel comes in the womb, and amongst the four things, there's rizq and ajal are written. And so obviously Allah knows before the creation how long everyone will live and the amount of rizq they will get. It's written. That's the qada mubram, the unchanging, what's known to Allah pre-eternally. But the hadith is alluding to a spiritual means that has an effect by the decree of Allah, by the permission of Allah. And Allah is the creator of both the means and the effect. So there's no causation there. But it's just the way, the tartib, the way Allah has ordained it by His hikmah, that if the person maintains kinship bonds, then it'll be a longer lifespan. So for example, in the qada mu'allaq, in the conditional qada, it'll be written that if so-and-so is bad to his family, he will live 50 years. But if he's good to his family, he'll live 80 years. That is what those potentials are on the qada mu'allaq. And then he actually is good to his family. So the angels perceive it as the 50 gets extended to 80 because he took that other spiritual means and Allah made his lifespan 80 years instead of 50 years. But what was in the qada mubram from the get-go? That he would be good to his family and that Allah would make his life how many years? 80 years. So this is the way we understand some of these seeming conflicts. Bismillah. And they mentioned real quickly what are the shurut of dua and its adab, so the conditions for dua to be accepted and its etiquette. The conditions, the first is a lawful income, aklul halal, and the second condition is to be certain of the response. To be certain of the response, which goes back to husn al-dhan, having a good opinion of Allah. And the third condition is to pay attention when we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, to pay attention, that the heart is focused. Ideally on Allah Himself or on the thing we're asking. And then another condition of dua is to not ask for anything impossible. So not ask that Allah create a square that's a circle at the same time. Okay, that's not good adab to Allah, because that's a logical impossibility. And they say that it's a condition to ask for something impossible, whether adatan, aqlan, or whether aqlan, shar'an, or adatan, all three types of hukum. So don't ask for a logical impossibility, like the example we just gave. Don't ask for a legal impossibility, something that contradicts the Sharia. Oh Allah, let Abu Lahab go to Jannah. No, Allah revealed Abu Lahab's in the fire, so we can't ask for that. So that would be something impossible based off the Sharia, even if it's a logical possibility. And then the third type, even a mustahil adatan, even to defy a law of nature. Oh Allah, let me fly home after class instead of driving my car. This is, although it's logically possible and it doesn't contradict the Sharia, this is bad adab. We don't ask Allah for the logical or the normative impossibilities. To defy a law of nature. The best defying the law of nature that we should ask to defy is that we get a grip on our nafs. That's defying what's natural and normal, and that's something good to ask for. Wallahu alam. So those are the shurut. The adab of dua, the etiquettes, is to ideally be in wudu if possible, to face the qibla, to raise one's hands. And it's not affirming a direction for Allah, but rather this is the qibla of dua. The samawat is the qibla of dua, just like the Kaaba is the qibla of the salat. So just like when we make salat, no one imagines that Allah is inside the Kaaba, but rather it's a qibla, it's a direction that Allah has ordained that we direct our salat to. Similarly, the dua, no one should think that Allah is in the heavens, because Allah is outside of time and place. Rather, it's the qibla of supplication and the qibla of the deeds. The deeds that are accepted by Allah are raised. وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. The Quran says, good deeds, Allah raises them. وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. Which one of the lessons, benefits that we can take from that is if a good deed is raised, then we won't dwell on it too much. So if someone's constantly thinking about how good of a salat they did last night, and how good their dhikr was the night before, and how much they read Quran the last week, and how many khatams they did last year, and they're just so walking around on earth reflecting as to how much they've done, it's not a good sign, because it means, the question is, has it gone up? Because a sign that it goes up is you're not thinking about it. You're thinking of your sins, and you're thinking of how much I need to do, and how many shortcomings my deeds have, that when I read the Quran, where were my thoughts? They were thinking about Facebook and Google and, fulan and fulana, or when I was doing this, what's the state of our heart during our worship? It's pretty scary if we really think about it. So, وَالْعَمْلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. So in any case, we raise our hands in dua, and that we start with Alhamdulillah and we end with Alhamdulillah, praising Allah in the beginning and end, and then salawat on the Prophet ﷺ at the beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning, middle, and end. And the wisdom of that is that salawat on the Prophet ﷺ is guaranteed acceptance. That anyone that asks for salawat on the Prophet ﷺ, it'll be accepted. And so Allah is too kind to accept the beginning, middle, and end of a dua, but leave the rest. Okay, so if He's guaranteed acceptance of the beginning, middle, and end, then inshallah we hope that He'll accept the rest, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say also from the adab is to start with tawbah, make tawbah before making the dua, just to confess to Allah that we're not that great. And lastly, one of the shurut we forgot is that a condition for dua is to not ask for anything haram. This is important. We cannot ask for anything haram. Like, they mention specifically qati'at al-rahim, asking that Allah sever family ties between any family members in our family or in someone else's family. This is not correct. That this is, it's sinful to do that. So, and that's something dua of the heart too. We shouldn't even wish for that. Or that someone not get their right. So not asking for any sin. This is one of the conditions. And then one of the things that our teachers mention is that there's adab of the person after the dua, is that they have sabr. They're patient with Allah's response, so they don't say, "Oh, I made the dua, why isn't it happening?" No, have patience. And secondly, zuhud, they shouldn't be attached to other than Allah. So if we're asking for, a certain car or a certain laptop or a certain whatever, then, don't be attached to it. So ask Allah and don't be attached. And then thirdly, that to focus on Allah afterwards. They say, al-ishtighal billah, to be concerned with Allah. And some of our teachers said that this is the quickest way for dua to be answered, is to focus on Allah Himself after the dua. And then they say that finally to appreciate the wisdom of dua, and that the wisdom ultimately is to connect the heart with Allah. Because ad-du'a mukhul ibadah. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dua is the core of worship. And ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua itself is worship. So if it's worship, then the point of worship is connecting ourselves with our Lord. And this is important. And the Prophet ﷺ was guaranteed Badr. He was guaranteed that victory. And the whole night before Badr, he prayed. The whole night he made dua. So we have to ask ourselves, if dua is simply for getting things, then why would the Prophet ﷺ make dua the whole night for victory that he was promised? Doesn't really make sense. If you're promised something, then you don't need to beg Allah for it. So then why would the Prophet ﷺ spend the entire night praying ta'alluq al-qalb billah, that the heart be connected with Allah? He's expressing his need for Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. بكل عبد حافظون وكلوا وكاتبون خيرة لا يهملوا من أمره شيئا فعل ولو ذهل حتى الآنين في المرض كما نقل. can be translated as every person has guardian angels that are appointed to them, wukilu. وَكَاتِبُونَ, as well as angels that write down. خِيرَةٌ, noble, goodly angels. لَن يُهْمِلُوا, they do not neglect. مِنْ أَمْرِهِ شَيْئًا فَعَلْ, from his affair a single thing that he does. وَلَوْ ذَهِلْ, even if he's not paying attention. حَتَّى الْأَنِينَ فِي الْمَرَضِ كَمَا نُقِلْ, even the groaning of during illness, even the person's groaning during illness, as has been narrated. So 85 and 86 dealing with angels. And there's two types of angels mentioned here: guardian angels and the angelic scribes. The guardian angels, some narrations mention that there are 20 per person, 10 by the day and 10 by night. And they are there to protect. And they protect, the ulama mentioned, primarily from, or specifically, in general they protect from disaster, but specifically from harmful jinn and snakes and scary critters. And that they are 10 and 10. And then one of the scholars, Imam Bajuri, mentions that one of the scholars, Ibn Atiyah, said that every human has 400 guardian angels appointed to him in his lifespan, from the time he's in the womb until his death. There's an opinion of one of our scholars, Ibn Atiyah, that's mentioned by Imam al-Bajuri, 400 per person over the span of their entire life. So, and then there are scribes, angelic scribes, and one that writes down everything good, one that writes down everything bad. The one that writes, so they write down everything that the person does, even when they're not paying attention. Of course, if a person's not paying attention or they're in a state of forgetfulness, then that's overlooked by Allah, but it's still written. Okay, so a person is taken into account when they deliberately do something wrong, or they're rewarded if it's right. But even if it's not taken into account for, they write it. Imam Sawi says in the commentary that everything the person does, including action of the limb, speech of the tongue, or even resolve of the heart. So fi'l, qawl, and azm. And this goes back to when we discussed the kasb. We said that the kasb was the azm. What the kasb ultimately is the firm resolve to do something. So laha ma kasabat wa alayha ma iktasabat. For the soul is every good that it earns, and against it is every evil that it commits, would include even the resolve. So even if Allah does not facilitate the act, the resolve is taken into account. Wallahu a'lam. And then the angel that writes down the good is the amir, is the leader of the two. And he, whenever the person does good, he writes it down immediately. If the person does bad, he commands the other angel to wait. How long? 1 hour? You know from class. 6 hours. They say sa'a falakiyya, 6 astronomical hours. So by our time, 6 hours. There's a lapse, a delay, before the angel who writes down our bad writes it down. This is so that we can make tawbah, so it doesn't even get written. Some of us, it takes 6 hours to snap out of it. May Allah forgive us. And so, and of the wisdoms of these angels is that when the servant learns about these angels, then they will feel ashamed to do wrong things, knowing that these angels are here monitoring us and writing things down. Bismillah. And they mentioned that when a person is, when their aura is revealed, like if a person is using the restroom, then the angels, the angelic scribes, they do not enter with him. But afterwards, they write down if anything good or bad happened when the person's aura was exposed. So even though they're not there, they have a way of telling. And some of them said the way they can tell when a person does good or bad is by the scent. Okay, so good deeds have a pleasant scent to the angels, and bad deeds have a hideous odor to the angels. This is something that we started the class talking about Karamaat, that some of the Auwliyyah can pick up on these scents as well. '87. So if we affirm these angels that are writing everything down, and we realize we need to work on ourselves, Imam Laqani advises, فَحَاسِبِ النَّفْسِ. So take yourself to task. Take account of your soul. وَقِلَّ الْأَمَلَ. And don't expect to live so long. Don't think that, let me live it up for the next 20 years, and when I'm in my 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever, then I'll shape up, make my hajj, make my tawbah, and meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a good state. No, قِلَّ الْأَمَلَ. Don't think that you have, there's no guarantee that you shall live that long, but rather start now. حَاسِبِ النَّفْس. Muhasabah, this is something important in our tradition. And Sayyidina Umar said, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Take yourselves to account before you are taken to account. The Salaf, some of the Salaf would actually write down their deeds. They would actually, like literal accounting, like an accountant. They were literal accountants of themselves. So they would write down their sins of the day from speech or action, and then in the evening they would make tawbah for each of those. And doing this is a very potent way of rectifying oneself. And this is, to this day, some shuyukh will have their students do this. And some of them are so meticulous in writing down, keeping track of their wrongs, that they say that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, when their books are handed to them, they'll already have them. And this is real. If a person's genuine and they really want to turn back to Allah, they need to see what's going on, what am I doing? And Sayyid Abu Hassan al-Shadri, he said that إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ هَوَانَ عَبْدٍ سَتَرَ عَنْهُ عُيُوبَهُ. When Allah wants that the servant be humiliated and of no worth or consequence, He veils him from his own faults. Me, what faults? You don't know. You obviously don't know who I am. I'm Fulan, and I have 2 PhDs and 3 masters and whatever else. But that's a bad sign. إِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ هَوَانَ عَبْدٍ. When Allah wants to humiliate the servant, He veils him from his own faults. وَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ عِزَّهُ. But when Allah wants the triumph of the servant, بَصَّرَهُ بِهَا. He lets him see his faults. لِيَتُوبَ مِنْهَا. So that he can make tawbah from them and change. فَرُبَّ مَنْ جَدَّ لِأَمْرٍ وَصَلَ. Because how many a person that's serious for a matter will attain it? How many a person, if they're serious for a matter, wasala, they will arrive, they'll attain it. And this is something, the sunnah of Allah in His creation, whether worldly or otherworldly. If a person is serious about something, they will be successful. This is a sunnah of Allah. And a person, is diligent and they work at it, then Allah grants tawfiq in that endeavor. So it's no different with rectifying ourselves. 88. وَوَاجِبٌ إِيمَانُنَا بِالْمَوْتِ وَيَقْبِضُ الرُّوحَ رَسُولُ الْمَوْتِ. It's incumbent that we believe in death. وَوَاجِبٌ إِيمَانُنَا بِالْمَوْتِ. It's incumbent that we believe in death. Incumbent, shar'an, it's been revealed. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every soul shall experience death, shall taste death. And then no intelligent person doubts it because it's seen. So its wuqu' is something that's mushahad. It's noted and observed. So for some people, it might be delayed. Okay. So, for example, on the opinion that Sayyidina Khidr alayhi salam is still alive, which is a strong opinion in our tradition, then it's not that he doesn't die, but it's just that it's delayed until the end of time. But he And same thing with Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, what we believe that he is still alive alayhi salatu salam, and that he returns at the end of time. Again, he will die alayhi salatu salam before Qiyamah. So everyone will die, every human and jinn will die. وَوَاجِبٌ إِيمَانُنَا بِالْمَوْتِ وَيَقْبِضُ الرُّوحَ رَسُولُ الْمَوْتِ. And the Rasul al-Maut, the angel of death, the messenger of death, يَقْبِضُ الرُّوحَ, will seize the soul. Will seize the soul. So the angel of death is his, and so he seizes all the souls of humans and jinns, and even the martyrs, he takes them. He takes their souls, whether on land or in sea. This is Imam Bajuri's commentary. And Imam Bajuri says he even takes the souls of angels. Okay, so he takes the arwah of the angels. حَتَّى رُوحَ نَفْسِهِ عَلَى أَحَدِ الْقَوْلَيْنِ. Even his own soul, according to one opinion. According to the other opinion, Allah takes the soul of the angel of death when it's his time to die. And of course, even on the first one, Allah is still the creator of it. But it's just that, is he an intermediary for his own, the taking of his own soul or not? There's a difference of opinion. And then he takes the souls of animals and birds, and they say even the mosquito, وَلَوْ بَعُوضَ. Naam. So this is the Sunni position. He takes all the souls, anything with life. And they say that one of the most important ways of easing the process, of making it easy, death and all that's to follow, is that a person is in a state of obedience to Allah when the time comes. Okay, that to be in a state of obedience to Allah and not in a state of disobedience is one of the most important ways of facilitating the death itself, as well as all of which is to follow. And then line 89, وَمَيِّتٌ بِعُمْرِهِ مَنْ يُقْتَلُ وَغَيْرُ هَذَا بَاطِلٌ لَا يُقْبَلُ. Another issue with which we, Ahl Sunnah, the position, Ahl Sunnah, so there is disagreement between Ahl Sunnah and some of the other groups, that if a person is killed, the victim of murder, what's the status of the victim of murder? مَيِّتٌ بِعُمْرِهِ مَنْ يُقْتَلُ. That the debate was, if someone is a victim of murder, did the murderer lessen his lifespan? Did the murderer cut short his lifespan? And the answer according to Ahl Sunnah is no. Okay, Ahl Sunnah says that a murderer does not change the lifespan, the appointed, determined lifespan, the ajal of the victim of murder. Rather, that was the time that Allah decreed for that person to die. Okay, so that was the original decreed lifespan, whenever the murderer killed the victim. However, the murderer has transgressed a limit that Allah has set down, a had, and there was a hurma, there was a sanctity of that soul, and so they committed a great enormity for which they are taken to task. And so either there is a worldly punishment by the government, or if that doesn't occur for some reason, then of course the other worldly punishment. So again, it goes back to the divine decree and what we talked about, and the two types of qada, and it's the same issue from a different perspective. So what seems on the surface, from our perspective, what seems like someone cut short the lifespan of someone else, we know to be false. But rather, that was what was decreed in the qada mubram. Maybe in the qada mu'allaq, maybe what the angels were shown was that had the murderer not killed him, he would have lived 70 years. But in the qada mubram, in the pre-eternal decree of Allah, it was decreed that his lifespan would end at age whatever, 25, whenever he was killed, in our example. So he says, وَغَيْرُ هَذَا بَاطِلٌ لَا يُقْبَلُ. Anything other than this is false and unacceptable. Alhamdulillah. So basically there's one ajal. There is one lifespan that is decreed and determined by Allah, and it was decreed in pre-eternity. Line 90. وفي فن النفس لدى النفخ اختلف واستظهر السبكي بقاها الذ عرف. So, line 90 is dealing with the nafkh, the blowing of the trumpet. So the angel Israfil alayhi salam is the one that blows the trumpet. And there's two trumpet blows. The first one is called nafkhatul fana, the trumpet blow of annihilation. And the second one is called nafkhatu al-bahth, the trumpet blow of resurrection. The hadith says between the two is 40. Between the two is 40. And Abu Huraira, Allah be pleased with him, who narrates the hadith, his students would ask him 40 days, and he would refuse to answer. They say 40 weeks, and they refuse to answer. 40 months, and they refuse to answer. And he refused to answer. 40 years, and he would refuse to answer. Radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So he kept it with the vagueness that the Prophet spoke with sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Arba'un, ma bayna nafkhatain arba'un. So Allahu a'lam. But the ulama, there are some perhaps weaker narrations that they use, because Imam Bajuri says ma fi ba'd al-turuq, according to some other narrations that might suggest 40 years. So Allah knows best, but there's 40 between the two. The first one annihilates everything. So anything that's alive at that time will die. Okay, anything that's alive at that time will die. Those that have already died, that are in the barzakh realm, and we know that there's a type of hayat in the barzakh. There's a realm of existence or life in the barzakh, because every soul is either being rewarded with bliss, it's either in a state of pleasure and bliss, or in a state of torment. This is something we believe. And there are many ahadith about it. So that's a type of life. So what happens to those souls when the trumpet is blown, the first trumpet blast, is that they faint. Okay, they pass out. And so they say that this would even include the blessed prophets, Alaikum Salam Jamian, that all souls in the graves they lose consciousness with the first trumpet blast. But there are a few exceptions. They say that the four head angels, they're not annihilated by it. So Jibreel, Mikael, Israfil and Israel alayhi salam jamian, that they remain. And they mention the Hur al-Ain in paradise also are not annihilated. And they say Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam is an exception, that in the grave he does not pass out. And they say the reason is because when in the dunya, when he asked to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he passed out. And so they said that took place of the trumpet blast. So he stays awake for that, alayhi salam. With the second trumpet blast, Imam Bajuri says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gathers all the souls in the trumpet. Allah places all the souls, He gathers them all in the trumpet. And there are as many as the number of souls in the trumpet, there are that many holes in the trumpet. And so then when the angel sounds, when he blows into it, and then every ruh goes through its hole and goes straight back to its body. And no ruh misses its body. This is something that is mentioned about the second trumpet. So Imam Laqani, what does he say in the line? وَفِي فَنَ النَّفْسِ لَدَى النَّفْخِ اخْتُلِفْ. With respect to the annihilation of the soul with the trumpet blast, اختلف, there is a difference of opinion. Okay. So some ulama say that with the first trumpet blast there's an actual annihilation of the soul. Others said that it's not annihilated. So there's a difference of opinion. So the tafsil that we gave was based off of the second opinion, that it's not annihilated. And then وَاسْتَظْهَرَ السُّبْكِي بَقَاهَ لِتُعْرِفْ. Imam Taqiyuddin Subki, the great Shafi'i master, and who reached the level of ijtihad according to many, he said that it's not annihilated. Baqa, okay, it's not annihilated. And so this is the preferred opinion according to Ahl Sunnah, which is what we gave the details of with the passing out in the graves, not annihilation. So that's why he says allad urif, the opinion that is known, i.e. accepted by Ahl Sunnah. So the line says, we translate it, with respect to the complete annihilation of the soul at the first trumpet blast, there was a difference of opinion, but Subki preferred that it is not annihilated, and this is what Ahl Sunnah accepted. Line 91 عجب الذنب كالروح لكن صحها المزني للبلا ووضحها. So Ajb al-Dhanab is the coccyx bone, the very end of the tailbone. Ajb al-Dhanab, the coccyx. So Imam Laqani says that coccyx karruh is like the soul, i.e. it will not be destroyed. So the soul is not destroyed, and the coccyx bone is also not destroyed. لكن صحها المزني للبلا ووضحها. Imam Muzani, who is the student of Imam al-Shafi'i and the uncle of Imam al-Tahawi, his opinion was that that the coccyx bone would be destroyed. Okay? And وضحها, he explained his position. But the dominant opinion is that it's not destroyed. Because the hadith says it's from that's the one part that remains of the human, and it's from that Allah recreates the body. So then, line 92, what about the ayah, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ? A very important verse in theology, that the Surah Al-Qasas, verse 88, and the middle of the verse says that كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. Kullu shay'in, every single thing, halikun. It's depending on the tafsir of the verse will affect the translation. So for now we'll say will perish, but there's other tafsirs. So in the context of this discussion, kullu shay'in halikun, everything will perish, illa wajha, except for His countenance, capital H, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His entity. If the soul is not annihilated, and if the coccyx bone is not annihilated, then what about that ayah? Because the ayah says clearly everything will be annihilated other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then the way the ulama reconciled this, because the position that the soul is not annihilated and the coccyx bone is not annihilated is based off of many ahadith, authentic ahadith. So he says, وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ قَدْ خَصَّصُوا عُمُومَهُ. The verse, everything shall perish, the ulama khassasu umumahu, they made an exception. You know, they did takhsis of the am. What's the generality of the verse, they gave specification, i.e. they made exceptions. فَاطْلُبْ لِمَا قَدْ لَخَّسُوا. So seek out what they have summarized. Seek out what the ulama have summarized. And so these are two of many exceptions to the ayah. That amongst the things that based off of ahadith that shall not perish by the decree of Allah is, so we've mentioned the ruh, the soul, ajb al-dhanab, the coccyx bone, ajsad al-anbiya wa shuhada, the bodies, the actual bodies of prophets alayhimus salam and martyrs, wal arsh, the throne, wal kursi, the kursi of Allah, wal jannah, wal nar, paradise and hellfire, wal hur al-ain, the maidens of paradise, and al-lawh wal-qalam, the tablet and the pen. These are all things that based off of, this is based off of different narrations that they said these are exceptions to the verse, that these all shall remain, they shall not perish with the trumpet blast. And so the other tafsir of that verse is what we discussed of occasionalism. Like Imam Ghazali, for example, he takes the word halikun here literally. So the way we translated it, everything shall perish. Halikun is a ism fa'il, active participle. The tafsir that the ulama, many of the ulama gave of it, referring to the end of time, everything shall perish. So halik is used for istiqbal, the active participle indicating the future, which is a type of metaphorical or figurative usage, because halik literally means at this moment. So that's the one of the tafsirs, and this is what the exceptions were made with respect to the end of time. What are exceptions that shall not perish? But the other tafsir that is related to Ash'ari Creed, what we covered in the Ilahiyat, in our metaphysics, is that what Imam Ghazali and others mention, taking halikun here literally. Taking halikun here literally, which would mean everything is perishing. Everything is perishing, illa wajha, except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning what? Meaning that contingency is momentary. Contingent existence is momentary. It does not last. Okay, so what's ja'izul wujud, what is possibly existent, in and of itself cannot remain unless Allah creates its continuity, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala maintains it. Allah is Al-Qayyum, so He keeps every ka'in qa'im. He keeps every existent thing there. So, in and of itself, were the divine creative act of kun to let go for a moment, it would be halik. It would perish. Everything, kullu shay'in halikun, at every moment is innately perishing, illa wajha, except for He who is necessarily existent. Al-Qayyum, the one who is qa'im bi nafsihi and muqim li ghayrihi, who exists on his own subhanahu wa ta'ala and maintains all other than Him. So that, and this is why we said that the Ash'aris, the doctrine of occasionalism, that there's no causation, therefore the fire does not cause the burning, because the fire itself is a momentary phenomenon and it has no effect, and Allah just maintains it, and then Allah creates the burning subsequently out of His hikmah. But it's something that can be defied, and that's why miracles can happen, and that's why in the end of time all the laws of nature will be defied. Okay, the resurrection of soul, the resurrection of bodies, and the questioning and the torment of grave, all these are defying our laws of nature and physics in the world, in the realm that we are in. And so if a person has trouble letting go of cause and effect, then they'll have trouble believing in the akhirah. And this is one of the things that Quraysh at the time of Makkah, they couldn't let go of cause and effect. Therefore, they said, how can these bones be brought back to life when they're decaying? And Allah responded, the one that created them in the first place, who can recreate them. So the idol of the sabab is the idol that prevents one from embracing the akhirah and its realities and resurrection. And in that way, the Quraysh at the time of the Prophet ﷺ are very much like modern man. The modern atheist, materialist is stuck in the sabab and can't get out of it. And that veils them from even believing in the divine, because look, fire just burned. It just did it. Didn't you just see it? Where's God in the picture? So in our aqidah, no, Allah is the creator of everything. So kullu shay'in halikun, everything is perishing at every moment, illa wajha, except Allah. And so if something is maintained in a second moment, Allah recreated it. Allah recreated it, He maintained it. And in that way, every moment is proclaiming His oneness. Every moment is proclaiming the divine oneness. For those who their basira is opened, it's a very profound tawheed. It's a very profound tawheed. So inshallah, we should probably stop if there's any questions. We're trying to cover more, so we finish the text inshallah. Are there any questions?
And the other ayah,
Yeah.
is pointing towards that nothing will remain and Allah will answer to Himself.
Yeah, so the question, the ayah, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. The same thing that was with the tafsir that they did, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. That there are exceptions, just تخصيص العام, and it's based off of the many ahadith. And of course, like we mentioned at the end, that there's no relationship between the baqa of a created thing and the baqa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if Allah wills for the soul to not perish, then it's by the decree and permission of Allah, and in and of itself the soul would certainly perish, like any created thing. Kullu shayin halik, everything by its nature is perishing. Illa wajha, Allah by His nature, quote unquote, is not perishing. He is Al-Qayyum. He is the one that has qidam and baqa. He is outside of time, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the continuity of created thing is within time and by the decree and creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The continuity of Allah is out of time and of His being, subhanahu wa ta'ala. His being is necessary. He's wajib al-wujud, subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. Wallahu a'lam.
For because the Quran's a jazm text, like it's certain and it's tawatur and all the things. How can hadith override what it's saying in a sense, or have an ability to do that? Because I think isn't that against the usul of people Abu Hanifa, that you can't really taxis the because it's using the any text to kind of underride or undermine what a certain text is saying.
Right. Yeah. So these are complex usuli issues, but what's the scope of takhsis al-aam and istithna? What's the scope of specifying a general text and or making exceptions of text? What does the strength of the other text have to be? The Shafi'is would be in fiqh. The Shafi'is would be a lot more relaxed about, the hadith can contextualize the Quran, even though the Quran is mutawatir, hadith are ahad. Whereas, like you said, the Hanafis would. Abu Hanifa's usul was that the az-ziyada al-kitab naskh, that adding to the book is a type of abrogation, and that therefore nothing can be added to it except something of similar strength. It's true in the usul of the Hanafi school, in terms of the fiqh, it's very rare for hadith to do takhsis or contextualize. We shouldn't say that, but to make exceptions of what's in the Quran, that rather it's placed of a different legal scope. So for example, La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab. The hadith says there is no prayer without the Fatiha. There's no prayer without the Fatiha. It's a hadith. The Quran says فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْ. فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْ. Recite that which is easy of the book. So Abu Hanifa would say that, like in Hanafi fiqh, one ayah, a complete ayah of at least 2 words, is sufficient for the validity of a prayer. Is sufficient for the prayer to exist, to at least be valid. If a person doesn't do the Fatiha, they're sinful, and so there's a deficiency in the prayer, but the prayer is still valid. They wouldn't have, we don't want to talk about makeups, but the point is that the prayer is still valid. So the reason he said is because the ayah in the Quran, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ, says recite whatever is easy of it, and one ayah is easy of it, and that is established through tawatur, mass transmission, whereas the hadith, لَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا بِفَاتِحَةِ الْكِتَابِ, is ahad. Even if it's sahih, it does not have the level of tawatur. And so he, instead of deriving a ruling of fardiyah, of something being an integral of the prayer, Abu Hanifa placed it in one notch lower and said it's a wajib of the prayer. The Fatiha is a wajib of the prayer. So one is still sinful if they don't do it, and it's a deficiency in the prayer, but it does not override the ruling from the ayah due to the difference of strength. And he would interpret that hadith saying that, because the Shafis would say there's a khabar that's mahduf. What's the omitted predicate? The Shafis would say la salata mawjuda illa bi fatihatil kitab. There's no prayer that exists without the Fatiha. So therefore, if someone doesn't do the Fatiha, there's no prayer, period. The Hanafis would say the khabar is kamila. La salata kamilatun illa bi fatihatil kitab. There's no prayer that's complete without the Fatiha, but it still exists because of faqra'u ma tayassara min al-Quran. So that's true, and these are very detailed discussions. And so with the aqaid and what we mentioned is there's a type of shuhra. There is a level of ahadith, even if they're not mutawatir, they become mashhur. They're not ahad. They're not the same as ahad. That they're so widespread that even the Hanafis would use them for specification of rulings derived from the Quran, for example. So there's a lot of usuli discussions in these matters, but this is the position of Ahlul Sunnah.
When you were talking about nafkhat al-fana, you had said that everything would be annihilated, but then later on you mentioned that you were talking about the second opinion that not everything is annihilated. I was wondering, is that in respect to the things that are already alive, or just the people that already passed away in their graves, or if you could specify?
Yeah. So the question about nafkhatul fana, that basically there's two opinions with respect to the soul. That وفي فن النفسي عند النفخ اختلف, that with respect to the annihilation of the soul at the first trumpet blast, اختلف, there is a difference of opinion. So one opinion is that the soul is annihilated. The other opinion is that it's not. And so if it's not annihilated, what happens? That's the breakdown that we gave. So it was my mistake. I started with that. We should have just clarified the difference first. So according to the opinion that the soul is not annihilated, that's what happens. If the person is alive, they will die from the blast. If people are dead, they pass out. There's a loss of consciousness in the grave. And Allah knows best. No. Well, let's see. Anyone else have questions? I think your hand went up first. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a couple of different questions. I'll try and get a couple of them. The first one, Karamaat, right? What's the implication of believing in Karamaat?
If someone denies them?
Well, no, I mean, we can affirm, even if one affirms that they are Karamaat, what are the implications? And what does that entail?
Well, that's a good question. What are the implications of believing in the Karamaat? I mean, it's not that there's some sort of act of worship that's dependent on it, but it's something that's been transmitted so much that that, like we said, there's a type of tawatur for just the what's called the kharq al-'ada, just the fact that laws of nature are being defied at the hands of these people, that they mention it in the text. So it's something that we believe in. And inshallah, that it's something we affirm in aqidah, but practically it's not something that we focus on. Okay, and that the awliya themselves, they don't really, they're too busy with Allah to pay attention to their miracles. This is really their state. And to get distracted by a miracle, it would be considered a type of deficiency that, they're not really at the level that they should be at. One can give shukr for it, if Allah gives someone a karama, and give shukr for it. But, there shouldn't be a type of self-applause for it. Inshallah, if we, implication, inshallah, that we believe in it and we believe in these people, that Allah will give us their company and let us be exposed to, inshallah, some of their, and it strengthens iman. If a person has ever had a karama or met someone with a karama, then it does something to the heart in terms of the iman. I mean, you could imagine those people listening to the khutbah with Sayyidina Umar, and they hear him call out, "Oh Sariya, the mountain," and then they find out what happened, the level of their iman. Or the people in Egypt, when they threw the letter in and suddenly the Nile starts flowing. It does something for the iman of a person. So there is a benefit in that, but it's not something to really harp over. And like Sheikh Sayyid Ramadan al-Buti, rahimahullah, his father was a major scholar and very saintly person, rahimahullah, and someone once came up to him and said, Sheikh, we heard that you're a wali, and we wanted to ask you, what's your karama? And he looked down and he said that, he was silent for some time, and he said that the fact that the earth does not open up to swallow me, despite how bad I am, is my karama. And that's defying a law of nature, because I should be swallowed up. And so, from that perspective, we're all experiencing karamaat all the time. If we think about it. So, alhamdulillah, inshallah, Allah will give us karamaat for His sake, so that our connection to Him grows. The whole point of everything in aqidah and fiqh and all the sciences is that we draw near to Allah. So the implication of karamaat is the implication of the entire religion, that inshallah we draw near to our Lord and don't identify with ourselves as much as we'd like to. Questions? Bismillah.
Bismillah. 2 questions from online. The first is, can Sheikh Faraz mention the names of the Angelic Scribes and the name of the Angel of Death? And then the second question is, if we pray istikhara for something and Allah gives us an answer, if we are not pleased with it and make a dua that Allah changes it, does it mean that it is written that we will make that dua for changing it, or are we disobedient to Allah's will?
MashaAllah. Angel of Death, Izrail, with an ayn, Izrail, alayhi salam. Angels of the scribes, Raqib and Atid. Raqib and Atid. Second question, if we make istikhara and it gets answered, then we should trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should trust Him and trust that that's the answer to our istikhara. But if there is a legitimate issue that happens, so whether there's something down the road and there's a type of harm one is incurring that they're able to protect themselves from, or they're Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, that there's a Sharia countenance issue, something haram they're falling into, or something like this, then of course one can change course if need be, And they should pray in istikhara for exit, just as they prayed in istikhara to enter something, they can pray in istikhara for exit. And inshallah, it's not a type of disobedience to Allah's will, rather the whole thing was the answer to the istikhara. Getting into it was an answer to the istikhara because there was a benefit in that test. And if Allah decrees to get out, if there's a clear problem or harm that a person is undergoing, then they pray istikhara, and if Allah gives them a way out, then inshallah that's the answer to their istikhara. The point is turning to Allah. The point is turning to Allah and trusting Him. And so, a beautiful dua from the Quran, Rabbi adkhilni mudkhala sidqin wa akhrijni mukhraja sidqin. Oh Allah, let me enter with an entrance of genuine sincerity to you, and take me out with an exit of genuine sincerity to you. That whatever we go into, inshallah, we turn to Allah, asking Him for tawfiq. And when things are bad and we feel that we need to, then if that's best for us to leave, we do istikhara. And when we're taken out, when Allah takes us out, we turn to Him. So istikhara and istishara, these are two golden things we should hold on to, is asking Allah for tawfiq in the decision with the istikhara prayer, and istishara, getting counsel from people who are worthy of seeking counsel from, the elders, people of wisdom, people with religious knowledge, people who are pious, etc., etc., and trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, alhamdulillah, Allah knows best. I think he will try to go around. I don't know. Tafadhal.
I had a practical question. You spoke about the Adab After the Dua, and you referred to avoiding, or the impermissibility of making dua that contravene the Sharia. And you mentioned the example of making dua that, for example, say that Jannah be made available to Abu Lahab, because we know from the Quran that's not so. So my question is about making dua for things that are antecedents to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and therefore admission into Jannah. Because we know from Al-Qayyum as well that there are certain baseline things that allow for that. And so, if I were to make dua for a friend for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and forgiveness, I'm by inference praying for that with the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite mercy will allow this person to avoid punishment. But I'm interested in hearing if these sort of indirect ad'iyah are themselves a violation of...
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So asking, for example, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and forgiveness for someone who does not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Who's alive?
Who's alive,
okay.
or deceased, for that matter.
Yeah, there's a difference. So, asking Allah to have mercy on a non-Muslim. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if they're alive, that's something, of course, we can do. That it's actually, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you truly believe until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And many of our ulama, when they comment on this hadith, they say أخيه في الناس عامة في بني آدم, that his brother amongst humanity. Many ulama comment, on they give this explanation. So, and they specifically mention, i.e., the first of which would be to pray for salvation. That if true belief is to love for fellow man what we love for ourselves, and the number one thing we love for ourselves is salvation, is eternal bliss with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So definitely we should make dua. It's actually something we should be doing a lot, is making dua for our fellow non-Muslims, that Allah have mercy on them, that Allah let them accept Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them, etc. For a non-Muslim that's passed away, it's interdicted in the sacred law, because we know from the Sharia that after the coming of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the only way to salvation is through him, through his religion, Islam. So although there's a possibility that a non-Muslim might have accepted, might have believed right before they died, that's possible. Even a moment before they die in their heart, that's possible. We're not denying that, but the ruling is not negating that possibility. So a person could still end up being saved because they did believe right before they died, and we didn't see that. But إِنَّمَا نَحْكُمْ بِالظَّوَاهِرِ, we've been commanded that we can only judge by what we see. This is in all Sharia rulings, we're dealing with other people. So, we're not denying the possibility that they didn't hear the message in the first place. And according to the Ashari school, they would have a divine amnesty. So, but because إِنَّمَا نَحْكُمْ بِالظَّوَاهِرِ, we have to just base it on the millah, the religion, outwardly professed religion of a people. And so the default would be that we can only pray for forgiveness and mercy for those that died as Muslims. Naam. So Allahu A'lam. Questions? Bismillah.
No, I don't know if I wrote this wrong, but I thought you said that the angels write down our deeds, our actions, and our firm resolves. Right?
Right.
That would imply that angels have access to our feelings and our thoughts.
Naam. So, that's a good question. The fact that angels write down our firm resolves, it would imply that they have access to our feelings and our thoughts. So what we mentioned is what the commentators have mentioned. So like I cited Imam Asawi, a late Ashari master, who said that the azm is written by the angels based off of it being a cusp. That the cusp, which we're taken to account for, it includes the azm, the firm resolve, and the angels write down everything that we are taken to account for. So how far can they go into our thoughts and feelings? Allah knows best. Okay, so what's mentioned was the azm, but beyond that, Allah knows best. There's certainly, the ulama mentioned, there are certain, the core of a person's heart that it's just between Allah and the servant. And so that's affirmed. But like we said, the way the angels know these things, our actions in the first place, is by the scent. So when we make a firm resolve to do something good or bad, there's some scent that the angels are able to perceive, due to which they write it down, according to the commentators of the Johara. And Allah knows best. Any other questions? No?
What's the sign that a guardian angel has protected you? Like, is it a luft? Like, it's not really going to be known, it's just kind of like overbearing, like, gentleness? Or can you actually, like, have experiences where it's like an angel?
The question is, what's a sign that guardian angels are protecting you? Is it some sort of lutf that you perceive or whatnot? Many people from the West that have lived in the Arab world would say that it's evident when you go in the taxis and the way people drive. The only reason we're surviving these car rides is because of the guardian angels. So, inshallah, be with the Muslims and you'll see the presence of the guardian angels, inshallah. Allah knows best. Yeah. Any other questions? No, inshallah.
Could you also elaborate a little bit more about, trying to understand the difference between, or the need for the idea of a qada mu'allaq? I mean, why do we, or how that came about?
So this is something that it's mentioned because the qada mu'allaq, it's one of the tafsirs of the ayah, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. In Surah Al-Ra'd, Allah Ta'ala says, Allah erases whatever He wills, وَيُثْبِتُ, and He affirms, He leaves whatever He wills. وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, and with Him is the matrix of the book. So there's, like Fakhruddin al-Razi, he gives, I think, over 9 possible explanations of what that refers to. What does Allah erase and leave on the one hand, and what's the matrix of the book on the other hand? And one of the explanations of this is that because with respect to the divine decree, certainly عِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ, with him is the matrix of the book, i.e. the unchanging decree that is with him in eternity. And Allah created the great lawh, the preserved tablet, and created the pen and had it write on it everything based off of that decree. It's a mirror of that decree and it's unchanging. So that's the Kitab, the foundation of the book. But the first part of the ayah, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ, Allah does erase some things and He leaves other things intact. So one of the tafsirs of that is that there are lesser tablets that are given to angels, which there is a change that occurs. And this is a way of reconciling all those other ahadith, dua in general, as well as many ahadith about the metaphysical implications of our actions. If you want like one rubric, the metaphysical implications of our actions, that if I'm good to a family member, or if we're good to each other, people that maintain kinship ties, the effects of that in provision and lifespan, etc., etc. So the aspect of change was attributed to what the angels get, versus the unchanging is what is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any other questions? Inshallah. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا والحمد لله رب العالمين.